Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident global citizens. My name is Tim, and as part of Reach the World's efforts to support educators and families during the COVID-19 pandemic, we're sharing free live stream discussions with some of our active virtual exchange travelers all around the world. You can find an updated calendar of live stream events and much more at athome.reachtheworld.org. Today, we're joined by Yejin Lim, a Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship recipient who's studying abroad in Wellington, New Zealand. Yejin's virtual exchange is open to any student who wants to follow her experiences in New Zealand, and we'll add a link to her journey homepage on the Reach the World site in the chat bar. During today's live stream, please use the chat bar to let us know you're here and share any questions you may have for Yejin. We'll get to as many questions as we can today. And without any sort of further delay, I'm ready to go to New Zealand if you are. Welcome, Yejin.
Thank you for that introduction. So my name's Yejin Lim, and I'm from US. I go to a school at Washington, D.C. at George Washington University. I am third year studying biology with minor in emergency health services. And I decided to go abroad this semester for spring 2020. I have a little story on how I ended up in New Zealand, how I was supposed to go to South Korea, and I was in South Korea, but due to events of COVID-19, I had to relocate to New Zealand.
All right, so you were originally planning to study in South Korea, and what were your plans to study in South Korea?
So as a bio major, I've done a lot of science STEM classes, finishing up my pre-med back in DC. So I wanted to lay back on a lot of the STEM classes. So I decided to do my humanities, sociology, and anthropology. In Korea, I was gonna take a lot of Korean focused classes too, to brush up on my skills on the language and the culture, because that's very important to me. Yeah.
Okay, and then you really made a big transition and went to New Zealand. What was that experience like for you, moving pretty quickly from Korea to Wellington, New Zealand?
So I was definitely not expecting such a drastic change. I was expecting some sort of change because I was reading on the news while I was going to Korea. But it was a last minute change. I had to book a flight in a day, get all visa applications and required admissions applications and all these forms back and forth with my advisor back at GW. That was something that was very overwhelming, but in the end I knew I had to continue my studies somehow, or I had to just give up my semester. So I booked a flight and I took a 24-hour flight to New Zealand with 2 transits. And yeah, I'm glad I made that choice today.
It was a big adjustment. I think it's probably worth noting just again that you are joining us right now live from Wellington, New Zealand. And you have so graciously woken up in the middle of the night to be a part of this call. And we really appreciate you doing that. So thank you. I want to sort of focus on your time so far in Wellington. I know that you've been limited in your ability to get out and explore Wellington because, like most of us, you're at home or at your apartment with limited access to activities. But based on the time you spent in Wellington before you were inside, what did you discover, or what did you find in your walks around Wellington?
I discovered so much nature around Wellington. I guess I didn't notice how much like to go hiking every day and or just to walk 10 minutes to the harbor and looking out at the sea, or hiking up the hill on the south side and just being able to see the South Island, a little tip of it. So also I've noticed so much different biodiversity around hiking trails and all these birds and animals that I've never noticed before when I was anywhere else.
All
And
right.
yeah,
Well, I know you have a couple of pictures of these things. Do you want to share some of your photos so we can sort of see along with you when as you're describing?
yeah. So so this is basically the 10-minute walk to the harbor, and this is what you can see during the daytime. These are some other photos. I'm pretty sure this is a famous statue by the harbor in Wellington. Oh, that's me. And yeah, these are more photos. This is the pond by the botanical garden. That's a 15-minute walk uphill.
So it looks very hilly to begin with.
So it's very, if you look at Wellington from Google Maps, you wouldn't know. It would just say it's a 15-minute walk, or it looks like a short path. But when you actually go, you're actually climbing up and down these hilly terrains. So this is up Mount Victoria, which is one of the famous lookout places. And this is the view from Mount Victoria. You can see most of Wellington. This is by the bay. This is another walkway that was the northern walkway. Oh, and I took this picture because I think it's a great message. This is part of the southern walkway, another different hiking trail. This is the War Memorial. I talked about Anzac Day on one of my posts on the blog, and basically it's a day to commemorate soldiers that fought in a battle with the Australian and New Zealand soldiers. This is another picture by the harbor.
Can we shift to sort of more of your general impressions of Wellington? I'm really curious to, especially for students who, have maybe never thought about New Zealand and don't know much about it as a country. How do people get around in Wellington?
So getting around in Wellington, I've been getting around before the lockdown. There's a main cable car that goes through the hilly parts of Wellington down to the city central. It's 4 stops, and it just takes you from the top of the hill all the way to the center of the city. And also there's buses that you can take with just like cards. They're called, everything's contactless, so you don't have to exchange money or anything like that. Also, a great way is just walking around all the places, and that's a great way to see where's new hiking trails or different neighborhoods. And there are also, you can call taxis, which I did to move from my other dorm to my current dorm.
Okay. And what is the currency that you use to buy things? What do you use to buy things with?
So the New Zealand dollar, I believe I should have some. Yeah, the New Zealand dollar. So this is what it looks like. That's the 50, the 20, and the 5. But a lot
There's
of
just a
places.
little delay in your video, so if you could hold it up and just hold it for a couple seconds, it might give us a chance to take a good look.
That's
Fantastic.
That's the 5. That's the 50. That's the 20. And if you see here, I believe that's their national bird, the kiwi. So I usually use cash, or a lot of places have the contactless card readers, which is great during a time like this to minimize contact between customers and workers.
Yeah, and I'm glad you showed us the picture of the kiwi, because so many students are curious about wildlife and animals in these new countries to them, that as they learn more about them. And what other sort of wildlife have you encountered? I know you're in a city, but what other animals do you see about?
For animals, I've only seen birds, which I can't identify a lot of the birds, but I've noticed also there's a lot of different trees. There's a mix of tropical trees and trees you would think see in colder climates. So now Wellington has a different season pattern than where the United States. So right now we're in fall, and in June, late June, it's going to be winter. So you can see when you're walking Western US, but other trees like the palms and other tropical trees just stay green. So it's a good mix.
What is the summer weather? I'm sorry, you're just finishing summer, going into fall. What is the summer weather been like for you?
So when I arrived, the weather was just great. Um, it's always sunny when, but when it's not sunny, it's very windy. One of the things I discovered when I was here is Wellington is actually the windiest city in the world. And so when it's windy and it's rainy, I can hear the wind just bang against the window of my dorm. Um, Other than that, when the sun's out, it's just beautiful, and you could see the whole like island and the city.
That sounds really nice. Do you know what to expect for winter in Wellington?
I actually don't, but I've heard it gets really rainy,
Mhm.
and it's better to have a raincoat than an umbrella, because your umbrella is just gonna blow away and flip because of the wind anyways. So yeah, I hope to avoid the winter.
Let's switch over to food. I know that you've had sort of limited access to the food scene in Wellington, but I wonder if you've come across any dishes or particular foods that are really popular in Wellington, or anything that could be considered a national dish.
So I know Wellington is they have a lot of lamb you could eat, or famous lamb dishes. I haven't had like a proper meal in a restaurant yet, but during quarantine, I was getting catered meals from Victoria University, and I've had lamb. I'm not a fan of lamb, but I know it's it's a famous dish eaten here.
Mm. And is that something you're gonna seek out as you get out, are able to get out of your apartment
Yeah, I
more?
would actually like to try lamb prepared actually in a restaurant to like give it another try because I know college food isn't always the best.
Well, you mentioned earlier Anzac Day, which I think is a really interesting national holiday, and I would encourage any of our live stream viewers or anybody watching the recording of this call to go on to Yejin's exchange homepage and look for that article. Perhaps my colleague Mara can post a link in the chat bar. And go check it out and read some more about it. Is there any other aspect of traditional New Zealand culture that you're interested in exploring as soon as you're able to get out and wander some more?
So right now I'm taking cultural anthropology, and I've gotten to learn about the indigenous people of New Zealand who are Maori people, and I've learned about their culture, and they have certain rituals and like cultural spaces where they use for the rituals. And yeah, I'd like to learn more about the Maori culture. I've also, when we're talking or professors are sending emails, they would use the language. And one of the language I know is Kia ora, which means basically like, good day, hello. And
All right.
also, I'm part of a Facebook group which teaches different Maori sayings and languages and phrases.
Okay. Very cool. It sounds like you have some places to go and visit, perhaps in mind for as soon as you're able. What are some of the places when you get out of Wellington that you're interested in exploring around New Zealand?
So outside of Wellington, if travel opens up again, I'd like to go to the South Island. Wellington has they have a ferry system, examples like Inter-Islander, where you can take, I believe it's a 3.5-hour ferry to the South Island. And I know South Island has beautiful hiking trails and different sceneries opposed to where I'm right now in Wellington. So I'd like to see that.
Okay. What is it that got you interested in studying abroad in the first place? When did you first start thinking about leaving, the Washington, D.C. area and having an experience outside of the country?
So at first, I didn't think I could study abroad as a biology STEM major just because it's not talked about, and it's usually kids of other majors because we have certain requirements that might not be transferred as equivalent into our college. And then I started doing more research, and I want to just tell everyone that it's totally possible to study abroad with whatever major if you plan it correctly and you take certain courses that fulfill whatever requirements you need. And so I was interested in studying in Korea because it's close to my culture. I'm Korean American, and also I have family there, which would be nice to be studying and learning about the culture while at the same time getting close to my family, creating a relationship. Yeah, that those were my plans for going to Korea.
Okay. Have you had are there any differences in language in New Zealand? What if for the person who is, coming to New Zealand for maybe the first time today, starting to think about it, what language do you speak and how do you communicate?
So in New Zealand, they speak English, or they have the New Zealand accent. There's three main language. It's Maori language, New Zealand Sign Language, and just English. So communication was no problem here at all, which was a good side, because it would have been something extra to worry about if I had to go from, because I know Korean, so it wasn't too tough for me to get around. But if I had to go to a different country, that would have been a different story. So I'm thankful.
I want to just do one last shout out to all of our live stream viewers. Please leave questions in the chat bar. I'd love to pass them along. We'll get to as many as we can today. I'm very happy continuing to have this lovely discussion, but I would also love to pass along student questions. So if you have any, please put them in the chat bar and we'll see them there. But I want to ask, what is it that you think that studying abroad adds to your major? You were talking about how maybe the study abroad experience isn't as talked about as much when you are studying a subject like biology. What do you think you're gaining by studying abroad as part of your college experience?
As part of my college experience, I want to say my course load is like, I don't want to say easier, but it's less time consuming and just stressful overall. And through that, I learned a lot about just not just being too focused on memorizing textbooks or just memorizing terms. I'm more, because I take more humanities, and I'm also in sociology of medicine, which makes me look at the different perspectives of whether it's right now it's we were doing a lecture on public health, and also just how poverty is affected in medicine, and how people have access to certain resources, but in the end there's a wider socioeconomic problem to the issue than just addressing this one issue as one definite problem. It has to be addressed as like a whole.
Okay. Yeah, it gives you maybe a little more global perspective on some of those issues that affect us all. I wonder if you're, speaking directly to young kids, what is it about New Zealand that might surprise them?
I think New Zealand, I was very shocked when I arrived. Not shocked in the sense I didn't expect it, but people are very welcoming here so far. Or I've seen people are very, they're willing to just talk, or no, I haven't had any hostile encounters. Also, when I was in quarantine, I had a lot of help from the main person in charge of the halls, and the university was checking up on me every day, make sure I was good mental health, good standing with my like physical health too. Also, I had to spend my birthday in quarantine, and she actually got me a birthday gift. I thought that was so generous of her. And so also, if students were to think about to studying New Zealand or visiting New Zealand in the future, I think it's a great place to just see different perspectives, whether it's like discover new hobbies such as hiking or going surfing, or anything else, just locally traveling. I think it's a good place to start.
All right, great. Well, I think that's probably the perfect place to leave it. I super appreciate you joining us, Yejin, all the way from New Zealand today. In the middle of the night. It's been really fantastic to talk to you and hear about your experiences in New Zealand, and we'll come back around and connect with you again in a couple weeks. I really want to thank our live stream audience for joining us today. Thank you so much. Anyone who would like to follow up and watch some more or rewatch any part of this, it will be available as a recording on our YouTube, Reach the World's YouTube channel. You can find a complete list of upcoming Reach the World live stream events at athome.reachtheworld.org. And until next time, I want to say thank you again, Yejin. Thanks for joining us, and hope you can get back to sleep.
Thank you. I'm glad I could share more of my experiences through this video call.
All right, thanks.
All right.